I should have known something was wrong when my brother couldn't stop smirking during Mom's famous pot roast dinner. That stupid grin of his always meant trouble was coming, but this time, he'd gone too far. I'm Taylor, and at 28, I thought I'd seen all of Zane's hilarious pranks. Growing up as his little sister meant being his favorite target, but usually I could laugh it off. Not tonight. Tonight changed everything. So, Zane announced, tapping his wine glass with his fork. The whole family looked up. Mom, Aunt Rachel, our family friend Annika, and my best friend Quentin, who I'd invited for moral support. I have a confession to make. Mom beamed at him like she always did. What is it, sweetie? Remember last month when Taylor was complaining about her medication not working? He paused for dramatic effect and my stomach dropped. Well, I might have switched her pills with sugar tablets, just to see what would happen. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before Mom burst out laughing. Oh, Zane, you didn't. I did. He was practically bouncing in his chair. I mean, come on, it was pretty funny watching her get all worked up about nothing. My hands started shaking under the table. Those pills were for my chronic migraines, the ones that left me curled up in darkness for days, the ones that made me miss work twice last month because I couldn't function. That's not funny, Aunt Rachel said slowly, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Those are prescription medications. Oh, please. Mom waved her hand dismissively. Taylor's always been dramatic about her headaches. A little placebo effect probably did her good. I felt Quentin's hand squeeze my knee under the table. When I looked at him, his face was tight with anger. So that's why I was in excruciating pain for weeks. My voice came out steadier than I expected. That's why I almost lost my job? Zane rolled his eyes. Come on, sis. It was just a joke. A joke? I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor. I ended up in the ER, Zane. Remember that? Or were you too busy laughing about your brilliant prank? Taylor, honey, sit down, Mom said, still fighting back giggles. You're making a scene. I looked around the table. Aunt Rachel was shaking her head in disgust. Annika was staring at her plate, clearly uncomfortable. Only Quentin met my eyes, giving me a slight nod of support. Making a scene? I grabbed my water glass, my hand trembling. You want to see a scene? Taylor, Quentin warned softly. I set the glass down, hard. Water sloshed onto the pristine tablecloth, making Mom gasp. You know what? I stood up. I'm done. I'm done with your pranks, Zane. I'm done with you laughing them off, Mom. And I'm especially done with being the family joke. Oh, don't be so sensitive, Zane called after me as I headed for the door. It's not like you died or anything. I stopped at the doorway, my eyes falling on Mom's prized collection of glass elephant figurines, the ones she'd inherited from Grandma, the ones she loved more than anything, maybe even more than her own children. No, I didn't die, I said quietly, but something will. What's that supposed to mean? Mom asked, finally sounding worried. I turned back to face them, forcing a smile. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Enjoy your dinner. As I walked out, I heard Aunt Rachel's voice. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Quentin caught up with me in the driveway. Taylor, wait. Did you see them? I was pacing, my hands clenched into fists. Did you see how they laughed? He grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to stop. I saw, and it was messed up, but what are you going to do? I looked back at the house, at the window where Mom's elephant collection caught the evening light. 32 pieces of pristine crystal, each one worth a small fortune, each one irreplaceable. I don't know yet, I said, but those elephants have been watching this family's drama for 3 generations. Maybe it's time they did more than just watch. Quentin's eyes widened slightly. Taylor, don't worry, I said, already feeling calmer as a plan started forming in my mind. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to make sure karma does its job. As we drove away, I caught one last glimpse of the elephants in my rearview mirror. They'd always seemed so delicate, so precious. Mom spent hours arranging them just right, making sure each one caught the light perfectly. Well, Mom, I thought, let's see how you like it when something precious gets taken away from you. 3 days after the dinner disaster, I was back at Mom's house, pretending everything was normal. The elephants glinted in the afternoon sun as I helped her with the dishes, their crystal bodies casting rainbow patterns on the wall. I just don't understand why you're still upset, Mom said, handing me a plate to dry. Zane apologized. No, he didn't. I set the plate down harder than necessary. He texted sorry or mad lol with a crying laughing emoji. That's not an apology. Well, you know how he is? She scrubbed at a pot that was already clean. He means well. From the living room, I heard Zane's voice. Hey, Mom, where's that photo album from Taylor's middle school years? The one with her braces phase? Top shelf, honey, Mom called back cheerfully. I gripped the dish towel tighter. Let me guess, he's going to scan those and post them online? Oh, Taylor. Mom flicked water at me playfully. He's just being a big brother. A big brother who tampered with my medication. I stepped away from the sink. Do you even realize how serious that was? I could have pressed charges. Mom's face darkened. Don't you dare threaten your brother. Of course. I laughed bitterly. Protect precious Zane. Who cares if your daughter ends up in the hospital? Found it. Zane's triumphant voice carried through the house. Oh man, these are gold. I walked to the living room, where he sat sprawled on the couch, flipping through my awkward teenage years. He looked up with that same smirk from dinner. Remember when you had that massive zit at graduation? I think that's in here somewhere. You know what I remember? I stood over him. I remember last month, lying in a dark room for 3 days straight because my medication had mysteriously stopped working. He rolled his eyes. Are you still on about that? Still on about... I snatched the album from his hands. Yes, I'm still on about that, because while you were having your little laugh, I was missing work, throwing up from pain, and wondering why my prescribed medication wasn't helping. Taylor! Mom rushed in. Give your brother back the album. I held it behind my back. Why, so he can humiliate me some more? It's just pictures. Zane stood up, reaching for the album. Don't be such a drama queen. Drama queen? My voice cracked. You messed with my health, Zane. My actual health. Do you know what it's like to feel like your head is splitting open? To not be able to look at light without wanting to scream? I said I was sorry. No, you didn't. You've never been sorry for anything you've done to me. The album fell forgotten as we faced each other. Behind Zane, the Elephant Collection watched silently, their crystal faces unchanging. One particular piece caught my eye. A baby elephant with its trunk raised, supposedly for good luck. Mom had always said it was the most valuable. You want to know what your joke cost me? I pulled out my phone, pulling up my banking app. Here's the ER bill, $2,800. Want to help pay for that? Zane barely glanced at the screen. That's not my problem. Exactly. I put my phone away. Nothing ever is. Both of you, stop it. Mom stepped between us. Taylor, you're being ridiculous. Zane didn't mean any harm. He never does, I said quietly, but he always causes it anyway. I turned to leave, but Zane's voice stopped me. Where are you going? To cry to Quentin about how mean we are? No. I looked back at the elephants, particularly at that lucky baby one. I'm going to do what you taught me, Zane. I'm going to have some fun. What's that supposed to mean? Mom asked, suddenly protective. Of the wrong thing, as usual. Nothing. I smiled, the same way Zane did before his pranks. Just that maybe it's time I developed a sense of humor, too. As I left, I heard Mom comforting Zane, telling him I'd get over it eventually. She had no idea that I already had something better in mind. Getting over it wasn't the plan anymore. I pulled out my phone and dialed Annika's number. She answered on the second ring. Taylor, are you okay? Remember how you mentioned being an auctioneer? I asked, starting my car. I have a question about crystal figurines. The elephants? She sounded hesitant. Your mother's collection? Yeah. I pulled out of the driveway, watching the house shrink in my mirror. How much do you think they're worth? There was a pause. Taylor, are you sure about this? Absolutely. I smiled as Mom's house disappeared from view. It's time for a little karma, and those elephants, they're going to help deliver it. Aunt Rachel's kitchen always smelled like cinnamon and coffee, a combination that usually calmed my nerves. Today, though, not even her famous snickerdoodles could settle the storm in my stomach. He did what? She slammed her coffee mug down, sloshing hot liquid onto her pristine countertop. Switched your medication? I nodded, watching her face turn red with anger. Mom thought it was hilarious. Of course she did. Aunt Rachel grabbed a dish towel, wiping up the spill with sharp, angry movements. Morgan always lets that boy get away with murder. But this, she shook her head. This is criminal, Taylor. Literally criminal. I know. I picked at a cookie, crumbs scattering across the plate. But pressing charges would destroy the family. The family? She barked out a laugh. Honey, they're doing a fine job of that all by themselves. My phone buzzed. A text from Annika. Research done. Collection worth minimum $50K. Some pieces much more. Call me. Aunt Rachel caught my expression. What is it? I hesitated, then showed her the text. Her eyebrows shot up. The elephants? She whistled low. I always knew they were valuable, but I'm going to sell them, I said quietly. All of them. She sat down heavily across from me. Taylor, before you try to talk me out of it, I'm not. She reached across the table, gripping my hand. I'm going to help you. I blinked. What? Those elephants? She squeezed my hand. They've been watching this family's dysfunction for decades. Your grandmother, my mother, she wouldn't have wanted them used as props in Morgan's shrine to denial. My phone rang. Annika again. I answered on speaker. Taylor? Annika's voice filled the kitchen. I've been making calls. There's an auction next month focusing on crystal collections. Very exclusive. The timing couldn't be better. Aunt Rachel leaned forward. Annika, it's Rachel. How would you handle the logistics? Rachel! Annika sounded relieved. Good, you're there. Look, I can arrange everything. Private viewing, authenticated documentation, the works. But Taylor, she paused. Are you absolutely sure about this? I thought about Zane's smirk, Mom's dismissive laugh, the way they both treated my pain like a punchline. I'm sure, but I have one condition. I took a deep breath. Whatever money we make, I want it donated to the women's health clinic downtown, the one that helps people who can't afford medical care. Silence filled the line. Then Annika laughed. That's actually perfect. Poetic justice, Aunt Rachel murmured, a small smile playing on her lips. Okay. Annika's voice turned businesslike. Here's what we need to do. A knock at the door interrupted her. Aunt Rachel went to check, then came back looking worried. It's Quentin, she whispered. I quickly switched off speaker. Annika, I'll call you back. Quentin walked in, looking concerned. Your mom called me. She's worried about you. Of course she is. I rolled my eyes. Now that I'm not playing along with Zane's jokes, suddenly I'm the problem. He sat down, stealing a cookie. She said you seemed different, planning something. Maybe I am. I met his eyes. Would that be so wrong? He studied me for a long moment. The elephants? How did you... The way you looked at them before we left. He shrugged. I know that look, Taylor. It's the same one Zane gets before a prank. This isn't a prank. I leaned forward. This is justice. Through revenge? Through consequences. Aunt Rachel cut in. There's a difference. Quentin looked between us, then slowly nodded. Okay. What do you need from me? Really? I hadn't expected him to agree so easily. Really? He grabbed another cookie. They crossed a line, Taylor. Way over it. And sometimes... He glanced at the family photos on Aunt Rachel's wall, at the years of memories and moments. Sometimes family needs a wake-up call. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Annika. Auction house very interested. Need items within 2 weeks. Possible? I looked at the 3 people in the kitchen. My aunt, my best friend, and through the phone, Annika, my own personal karma crew. 2 weeks, I said, feeling stronger than I had in months. We can do that. Aunt Rachel stood up, determination written across her face. Well then, let's start planning. Those elephants aren't going to liberate themselves. As we gathered around her table, plotting the details, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time since that dinner, I wasn't a victim of Zane's cruelty or Mom's enablement. I was the one in control. And those elephants? They were about to trumpet a message my family would never forget. Mom's hosting bridge club tonight, I said, checking my watch. She'll be gone for at least 3 hours. Quentin pulled his car into the shadows 2 houses down from Mom's. And you're sure about the alarm code? 4782, Zane's birth year. I rolled my eyes, because obviously he's the golden child. We waited until Mom's car disappeared around the corner, her bridge club friends chattering loudly as they drove away. The house sat dark and quiet, except for the porch light she always left on. Ready? Quentin squeezed my shoulder. I nodded, gripping my spare key. Aunt Rachel's waiting with Annika at the storage unit. We moved quickly across the lawn, my heart pounding with each step. The key slid in smoothly, and I punched in the alarm code with trembling fingers. Green light. We were in. The elephants gleamed in the darkness, 32 pairs of crystal eyes watching our every move. I pulled out the padded boxes we'd brought, laying them on the dining room table. Start with the small ones, I whispered, though we were alone. They're in the front. Quentin worked methodically, wrapping each piece in bubble wrap while I documented them with my phone's camera. Each elephant had its own story, its own memory. The baby one from my 5th birthday, the mother and child pair from Mom's wedding. Taylor? Quentin's voice was soft. You okay? I realized I was holding Grandma's favorite, a majestic bull elephant with its trunk raised high, the last piece she'd added to the collection before she died. She left these to Mom because she thought they'd be safe, I said, carefully wrapping it. She never knew what this family would become. Hey. Quentin stopped working. We can still… No. I placed the elephant in its box. We can't. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Rachel. Bridge Club spotted at Carol's house. All clear here. We worked faster. 20 minutes later, all 32 elephants were packed and ready. The display cabinet looked startlingly empty, like a mouth missing all its teeth. Last chance, Quentin said as we carried the boxes to his car. I took one final look at the house. Through the window, I could see the empty cabinet, and for a moment I remembered all the times Mom had let me help clean them. How proud she'd been of each piece. How she'd tell their stories over and over. Then I remembered her laugh at dinner, the way she dismissed my pain, protected Zane instead of me. Let's go. The drive to the storage unit was tense. Every car behind us looked like Mom's. Every red light felt like an eternity. But finally, we pulled up to find Aunt Rachel and Annika waiting. Everything okay? Aunt Rachel asked, helping us unload. Perfect. I handed Annika the first box. They're all here. Annika opened it carefully, lifting out the baby elephant. Oh my. These are even more beautiful than I remembered. The auction house will be thrilled. When? I asked. They're sending a courier tomorrow. She examined another piece. The auction's in 3 weeks. These will be the centerpiece. 3 weeks? My stomach lurched. Mom will notice them missing way before then. That's the point, isn't it? Aunt Rachel said, arranging the boxes in the storage unit. Let her feel what it's like to lose something precious. My phone lit up. A text from Mom. Bridge Club ended early. Carol's husband had an emergency. Coming home now. Want to stop by for tea? She's heading home, I said, my voice shaking. Quentin checked his watch. We got out just in time. We finished storing the elephants, each box carefully labeled and documented. Annika promised to handle everything with the auction house. Aunt Rachel hugged me tight before leaving. Your grandmother would be proud, she whispered. Sometimes love means standing up for yourself. Back in Quentin's car, my phone started ringing. Mom's face lit up the screen. Here we go, I muttered, declining the call. Another text popped up. Taylor, the elephants are gone. Someone broke in. Call me now. Then another, did you take them? Please tell me you didn't. And another, your brother is furious. What have you done? I turned off my phone. You know there's no going back now, Quentin said quietly as we drove away. I watched the storage unit disappear in the side mirror, thinking about those 32 elephants, each one wrapped in bubble wrap and waiting to serve a greater purpose than just sitting in Mom's display case. Good, I said, because I'm done going backward. From now on, we're only moving forward. The night wrapped around us like a blanket as we drove home, and somewhere in the darkness, I swear I could hear the faint trumpet of elephants, cheering me on. The auction house buzzed with quiet energy. Well-dressed people milled around, sipping champagne and examining the displays. Mom's elephants sat center stage, each one catching the light exactly the way she used to arrange them. Bidding starts in 10 minutes, Annika whispered, appearing at my elbow. Are you sure you want to stay and watch? I nodded, clutching my auction paddle like a shield. I need to see this through. My phone had been exploding for the past 3 weeks. Mom's messages ranged from desperate pleas to angry threats. Zane had left exactly one voicemail. You've lost your mind, you know that? Look, Quentin nudged me, pointing to a woman examining the baby elephant. She's from the Women's Clinic Board. The woman held up the piece, admiring how it caught the light. I'd done my research. She had the funds to make a serious bid. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer's voice boomed through the room. Please take your seats. We're about to begin. Aunt Rachel squeezed my hand as we sat down. Remember, whatever happens, you're doing the right thing. The first few lots went quickly. Antique vases, rare books, vintage jewelry. Then, Lot 47, the Eleanor Holmes Crystal Elephant Collection. 32 pieces, mint condition, with full documentation of provenance. Opening bid at $50,000. A paddle went up immediately. Then another. And another. 60,000. 75. 80,000. My heart raced as the numbers climbed. The woman from the women's clinic kept bidding, her face determined. $120,000. She called out clearly. The room fell silent. The auctioneer looked around. Going once? My phone buzzed. Mom again. The police are involved now. You've gone too far. Going twice. Another paddle rose. 150,000. The clinic board member didn't hesitate. 175. 200,000. The other bidder countered. I held my breath. The clinic member consulted briefly with her colleague, then shook her head. She was out. 200,000 going once. Aunt Rachel gripped my arm. Taylor? Going twice. I raised my paddle. 250,000. Gasps rippled through the room. Annika's eyes widened. The other bidder turned to look at me, then slowly lowered their paddle. Sold. The gavel cracked like thunder. To paddle number 47. Taylor, Quentin hissed. What are you doing? I stood up, my legs shaking. Excuse me, I called out. I'd like to donate this entire collection to the Downtown Women's Health Clinic in honor of my grandmother Eleanor Holmes. The room erupted in applause. The clinic board member rushed over, tears in her eyes. This is incredible, she stammered. The clinic has been struggling to stay open. This will fund our operations for years. Cameras flashed. Someone from the local paper appeared, asking for a statement. Through it all, my phone kept buzzing. Finally, I answered it. Where are they? Mom's voice was hoarse. Taylor, please. Turn on Channel 7 tonight, I said calmly. You'll see exactly where your precious elephants ended up. They weren't mine to sell? Her voice cracked. How could you? How could I? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. How could you laugh when Zane put my health at risk? How could you dismiss my pain? Those elephants are going to help people now, Mom. People like me, who need medical care they can't afford. Silence filled the line. Then quietly, Zane's here. He wants to talk to you. No. I watched as the clinic staff carefully packed up the elephants. I'm done talking. It's time for you both to listen. I hung up as reporters gathered around. Ms. Holmes, can you tell us what inspired this generous donation? Looking straight into the cameras, knowing Mom and Zane would see this later, I smiled. Sometimes, I said clearly, the best way to heal is to help others heal too. These elephants have been silent witnesses to family drama for too long. Now they're going to be part of something bigger, something that actually matters. Aunt Rachel appeared beside me, her arm around my shoulders. And sometimes, she added, karma needs a little help finding its way. Later, as we watched the elephants being loaded into the clinic's van, Quentin handed me a cookie. Snickerdoodle? He grinned. Aunt Rachel stress-baked all morning. I took it, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. You know what's funny? I actually feel sorry for them now. Why? Because they'll never understand what they did wrong. I brushed crumbs from my dress. But at least now, every time they think about those elephants, they'll remember that actions have consequences. And karma, Aunt Rachel added, has a way of coming back around. We watched the van drive away, 32 crystal elephants heading toward their new purpose. Behind us, my phone stayed silent, and for the first time in weeks, that silence felt like victory. 1 week after the auction, Mom insisted on another family dinner. To talk things through, she'd said. I knew better. This was an ambush. I arrived last, walking into a tension so thick you could cut it with one of Mom's fancy butter knives. The empty display cabinet loomed in the corner like a missing tooth in an otherwise perfect smile. Well, Zane drawled from his seat. Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence. Zane, Mom warned, but her tone lacked conviction. She bustled around, setting down a casserole. Taylor, honey, sit down. I made your favorite. Tuna casserole stopped being my favorite when I was 12, I said, taking the seat furthest from them. But you'd know that if you ever actually listened to me. Aunt Rachel, bless her, had positioned herself between me and them. Quentin sat on my other side, a solid wall of support. I saw you on the news, Zane said, stabbing his fork into his food. Real dramatic performance. Did you enjoy destroying Mom's inheritance? About as much as you enjoyed destroying my health. I smiled sweetly. Pass the salt? Mom's hand shook as she passed the shaker. Taylor, we need to talk about what you did. Funny. I sprinkled salt on my food. That's exactly what I wanted to do after Zane's little prank. But nobody seemed interested then. That was different, Mom protested. How? I set down my fork. How exactly was it different? Because it was just a joke, Zane exploded. This was theft. No, Aunt Rachel cut in. This was consequences, something you've managed to avoid your entire life, Zane. Stay out of this, Rachel, Mom snapped. Why should she? I asked. She's the only one who's been honest about this family's problems. Problems? Mom's voice rose. We don't have problems. We had a beautiful collection of family heirlooms that you sold out of spite. Sold? I laughed. No, Mom, I didn't sell them. I donated them to help people who can't afford medical care. You know, like when I couldn't afford my ER visit after Zane's hilarious medication swap? The room fell silent. Even Zane had the decency to look uncomfortable. $250,000, I continued. That's how much those elephants were worth. That money is going to help people get the medical care they need. People who won't have to wonder if their family members switched their medication for fun. I said I was sorry, Zane muttered. No, you didn't. I slammed my hand on the table. You never did. You sent a text with laughing emojis. Taylor. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. We can fix this. We can buy them back. They're not for sale. I stood up. They belong to the clinic now. And you know what? Grandma would have been proud. Don't you dare bring your grandmother into this. Mom's face reddened. Why not? They were her elephants first, and she believed in helping people, in doing what's right, unlike some people in this family. Zane stood up too. You want to talk about doing what's right? How about respecting family property? How about respecting your sister's health? Quentin spoke up for the first time. How about not treating someone's medical condition like a joke? This isn't about you, Zane snapped at him. No, I agreed. It's about accountability. Something this family seems allergic to. Mom started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative ones I'd seen so often. Those elephants were all I had left of your grandmother. No, Mom. I softened my voice. You had me. You had a daughter who needed your support, your protection. But you chose to laugh instead. I didn't. She trailed off, realization finally dawning in her eyes. Didn't what? I pressed. Didn't think? Didn't care? Which is it? The silence stretched out, broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock in the corner. Finally, Zane spoke, his voice unusually quiet. I really messed up, didn't I? Yeah, I said. You did. And now those elephants are going to help fix what you broke, not just for me, but for others too. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Behind me, Mom called out, Where are you going? To the clinic, I said without turning around. They're having a dedication ceremony for the new Eleanor Holmes Medical Assistance Fund. You're welcome to come, but only if you're ready to actually listen. As I walked out, I heard Aunt Rachel's chair scrape back. Then Quentin's. Their footsteps followed me down the hallway. The empty display cabinet caught the evening light one last time as I left, its glass shelves now serving as mirrors, reflecting back the truth this family had avoided for so long. Sometimes the biggest statements are made in empty spaces. The clinic's conference room buzzed with activity as staff arranged chairs and hung a banner reading, Eleanor Holmes Medical Assistance Fund. The elephants stood proudly in a new display case, catching the afternoon sun just like they used to in Mom's house. Taylor? Dr. Sarah, the clinic director, touched my arm. We're ready to begin if you'd like to say a few words. I nodded, adjusting my note cards. The room was packed. Clinic staff, local media, even some former patients. Aunt Rachel and Quentin sat in the front row, beaming. Then the door opened. Mom walked in, followed by Zane. They looked smaller somehow, less certain. Mom's eyes immediately found the elephants, and I saw her hands clench into fists before relaxing. "I didn't think you'd come," I said as they approached. "We almost didn't," Zane admitted. "But then we saw the news report about what this fund will do." Before I could respond, Dr. Sarah called everyone to attention. "Welcome, everyone. Today marks a new chapter for our clinic." I half listened as she explained the fund's purpose, helping patients afford crucial medications, treatments, and emergency care. My eyes kept drifting to Mom and Zane, watching their reactions. "And now," Dr. Sarah smiled, "I'd like to introduce Taylor Holmes, whose generous donation made this possible." The room applauded as I stepped up to the podium. My prepared speech felt wrong suddenly, so I set the cards aside. 3 months ago, I began, someone switched my medication with sugar pills as a joke. I looked directly at Zane. I ended up in the ER, unable to afford the treatment I needed. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "But this isn't about revenge," I continued. "It's about transformation. These elephants watched our family for 3 generations. Now they're going to watch over people who need help, who need hope." I gestured to the display case. My grandmother collected these because she believed beautiful things should serve a purpose. Today, they'll help ensure that no one has to choose between medical care and paying their rent. No one has to suffer because they can't afford their medication. Zane's face had gone pale. Mom was crying silently. "The Eleanor Holmes Fund will provide assistance to hundreds of patients every year. And every time someone receives help, these elephants will be here, reminding us that sometimes the most valuable things we own are worth more when we give them away." The applause was thunderous. Dr. Sarah announced that the fund had already helped 3 patients this week. As people mingled afterward, Zane approached me. "Can we talk?" He looked different, humbled. "Please." We moved to a quiet corner. Mom joined us, her makeup streaked with tears. "I get it now," Zane said quietly. "What I did, it wasn't just a prank. I could have killed you." "Yes," I said. "You could have." "And Mom's voice cracked. "I enabled it. All these years I laughed it off, made excuses." She touched my arm hesitantly. "I failed you, Taylor." "You did," I agreed. "Both of you did." "The elephants," Zane gestured to the display. "Grandma would have approved, wouldn't she?" "She would have done it herself," Aunt Rachel said, joining us. "Morgan, remember how she volunteered at the free clinic every Wednesday?" Mom nodded, wiping her eyes. "I forgot that. I forgot a lot of things, it seems." "I'm sorry," Zane said suddenly. "Really sorry. Not with emojis or excuses, just sorry." "Me too," Mom added. "I know it's not enough, but it's a start," I cut in. "A real start this time." Dr. Sarah appeared with a patient, a young woman about my age. "Taylor, this is Jessica. She received her migraine medication today, thanks to the fund." Jessica hugged me impulsively. "Thank you," she whispered. "I've been choosing between medicine and groceries for months." I hugged her back, feeling Zane and Mom watching. As Jessica walked away, Zane cleared his throat. "How much?" He swallowed hard. "How much does the fund need to help more people like her?" "Are you serious?" I asked. He pulled out his checkbook. "Dead serious. It's time I grew up, right?" Mom reached for her purse, too. "Count me in." I watched them write their checks, larger amounts than I expected. As they handed them to Dr. Sarah, I felt something shift in the air, like the last piece of a puzzle falling into place. Behind us, the elephants stood guard, their crystal forms catching and reflecting the light, transforming it into something new and beautiful, just like us. "So," Aunt Rachel said, putting her arms around me, "was it worth it?" I looked at my family, really looked at them, and saw change where there used to be denial, understanding where there used to be dismissal. "Yeah," I said. "It was worth every penny." "Ready for this?" Quentin asked as we pulled up to Mom's house for Sunday dinner. I nodded, clutching the small gift bag in my lap. Through the window, I could see Mom setting the table. No fancy china this time, just regular plates. Progress. Inside, the empty display cabinet was gone. In its place stood a small table with a single crystal elephant, Not from the original collection, but a new one Zane had found at an antique shop. Taylor! Mom hurried over, hugging me. I made lasagna, real lasagna, not tuna casserole. You remembered? I said, surprised. I'm trying to. She squeezed my hand. Really trying. Zane emerged from the kitchen, wearing an apron and carrying a salad bowl. Hey sis, you're just in time. I only burned the garlic bread a little. You cooked? Taking a cooking class, he shrugged. Turns out there are better hobbies than pranking your sister. We settled around the table, the conversation flowing easier than it had in years. No forced laughter, no tense undercurrents. Just family, finding their way back to each other. Before we eat, I said, pulling out the gift bag, I have something for you both. Mom and Zane exchanged glances as I handed them each an envelope. What's this? Mom asked, opening hers. Read it out loud, I suggested. She cleared her throat. Dear Mrs. Holmes, thanks to your recent donation to the Eleanor Holmes Fund, we were able to provide emergency medication to twins Sarah and Samuel, age 6. Their mother wrote, I can finally sleep at night knowing my babies can breathe properly. There's a picture. Mom's voice cracked as she looked at the photo of 2 smiling children holding their inhalers. Zane opened his envelope next. Your contribution helped Janet, age 29, receive critical migraine treatment. She's now back at work and able to support her family. He looked up at me. You're keeping track? The clinic sends monthly updates about who the fund helps. I smiled. I thought you'd want to know what those elephants are doing now. There's more, Quentin said, nodding at the gift bag. Mom reached in and pulled out a small photo album. On the cover was a picture of the elephant collection in its new home at the clinic. Open it, I urged. She did. Inside were photos of people, patients, doctors, families, all standing near the elephant display. Each photo had a story. Medications provided, treatments funded, lives changed. This is what Grandma's legacy really looks like, I said softly. Not just beautiful things behind glass, but real help for real people. Zane wiped his eyes quickly. I, actually have something too. He disappeared into the kitchen, returning with an envelope of his own. I registered for a pharmacy technician program. What? I stared at him. Yeah, well, he shuffled his feet. After everything, I want to help people get the right medications, make sure they're safe. Maybe work at the clinic someday. Mom stood up suddenly, walking to the single elephant on display. Your grandmother used to say that beautiful things should have beautiful purposes. She turned back to us. I think we finally understood what she meant. We did, I agreed, though it took some tough love to get there. About that, Zane said. I know we've apologized, but I want you to know. I think about what I did every day. Every time I read about someone the fund helps, I remember how close I came to really hurting you. I know. I reached across the table, taking his hand. That's why I forgive you, both of you. Mom joined us, placing her hand over ours. We don't deserve it. Maybe not, I said. But forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about growing, and you both have grown so much. Thanks to you, Zane added, and those elephants. Speaking of which, Quentin pulled out his phone, showing us the clinic's latest post. They just helped their 100th patient this month. We raised our glasses. Water for me, since I was back on my proper medication. Wine for the others. To the elephants, Mom said. To growth, Zane added. To family, Aunt Rachel chimed in from the doorway, arriving right on time with dessert. To all of it, I said, looking around at these people who had hurt me, who had changed, who had learned. To everything we lost and everything we found. The single elephant caught the evening light, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the walls. Different from before, but beautiful in its own way. Just like us. Sometimes the best endings aren't about getting back what you lost, but discovering something better in its place. We'd lost a collection of crystal elephants, but we'd gained something far more precious. Understanding, growth, and a family that finally knew how to love each other properly. And somewhere, I knew Grandma was smiling.